So, it's quite an adventure to get here.
We had a bit of a journey to get back to Little Rock.
You came all the way from Austin. I understand it was quite the challenge to get up here.
Well, we were planning on flying, and we had storms in Austin, and they had storms in Dallas, and there's storms here. Which, of course, I told them backstage, every time I've been to Little Rock, it's raining. I think it's just me. But anyway, so we get to the airport in Austin, we're sitting on the plane. Pilot comes on and says, well, we can't, Dallas is completely shut down. We won't know anything for an hour and 15 minutes. We have a layover in Dallas, we're thinking, looking at the watch, and my manager Mark and I are trying to do the math, and we just finally said, you know what, let's go get in the car. So we got off the plane, got in the car, and drove 500 miles and made it in the nick of time.
Could you have biked here faster?
Yeah, this was, we pulled into town about 5:45, so.
Well.
And it rained the whole way.
The whole way, well. We're certainly glad you made it. I think we need to address something extremely important right out of the gate. And I hope you don't mind, because we have a lot of people here who are obviously huge fans of yours, me included. It's been a difficult time for you, as we know, but I think everyone in this room, especially the avid writers, need an honest answer to my first question.
Okay.
Body glide or buttercream?
Now,
be honest.
I have had some hard-hitting interviews in my life. My honest answer would be neither.
Really? Wow.
Neither. I think that's a
really? Okay.
slippery slope, so to speak.
Pun intended, right? Okay.
Pun intended, but also, anyway.
Yeah, I gotcha. How are you doing, Lance? Honestly, though.
Yeah, we're doing good. And I say we because it's, I've got 5 kids, and just, we're sort of navigating a complicated time in our lives, not just my life, but their lives. And we did not foresee being in this position, but we are. And I think there's, as time goes on, these things soften, and people have a better understanding of the context of things, the timing of things, and that helps. I'm by nature an impatient person, so I kind of hoped that would happen in like a week, but it hasn't, and it won't. And so, but we're doing well. My kids are doing great. They're doing good in school. They don't, especially my older kids. One of them's a freshman in high school, and twin girls that are in 7th grade. They don't hear about what their dad's bike racing career was like in the 90s. Like, that's not what they talk about at their school. So I've been fortunate to have a great community around them and great families, and we're managing.
Yeah. We've all had to face our demons at some point in time, me included. It's not easy. It's a discovery.
We'll get to your demons in a minute.
That's fair.
Oh no, and all of y'all's too. Don't worry.
We're going to go around.
We're getting over here in a minute.
That's right.
Was it Tim or Jim? Tim's going to tell us how he lost 200 pounds.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that in a minute.
That's right. But in terms of what you've had to face, nobody wishes that on anyone, but it is a reality.
There are some that wished it on me, but but I did. But in all fairness, I deserved it. But look, it was a very, very complicated, unfortunate time, and it seems it's almost 100% of the time when I open my mouth on this subject that the reception is mixed. It's very, it's when I try to be totally open and honest and transparent about that era, there's always not a majority, but a high percentage of the room. It's like, I didn't like that answer. But I spent, so many years not being able to be totally honest and transparent about it, and now they liked that at the time, and now when you're open and honest and transparent, they don't like it. But look, it was we, as all of us, as young guys, got put into this arms race in the 90s, and we're cyclists by nature or not, they don't come from wealthy families, they're not educated, they're not, we're in Europe, we're American kids, we've got no friends, no family, we have no, this is in the early 90s, we have no cell phones, no computers, we are stranded. And I'm not making excuses, but this is the decision set that we had, and we're looking around going, if I tap out and go home, I'm a plumber, I'm a bike mechanic in Plano, I don't know what I am. And so we, everybody dove in, sort of head first. But I think all of us looking back on that would say, I just wish we had a different option. I wish we all had different options. And that's the unfortunate thing. And at the time, the arms race was way ahead of the system and in the lab, and just bad timing, so to speak. But look, I'm a big boy, and we all make mistakes, and certainly I think my mistakes were made. I think the biggest mistake was like they say, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. But we went for. I had so much. Bruce talked about the foundation, and there was so much between the industry, the cycling industry, the sport itself, the media, the foundation, my own ego. You had all these things just rolling. There would have been no way. Like, okay, Kevin, you seem like a nice guy, right? I got asked the question by 1,000 nice guys. And I said no every time. No, of course not. And here's the reason. There was never a point where I was going to say, well, this Kevin seems like the nicest of the nice guys. I'm just going to be honest with him.
Yeah.
Like, nobody does that.
I appreciate that.
No, but you don't just all of a sudden go, okay, I've had it, until the gig is up. And
let me ask you this, though. There is, I'm sure, the hope that we as a public and a society who are fans of you, and I can't speak for yourself, but forgiveness is a big topic. I'm more interested in knowing, have you been able to forgive yourself? Or is that a challenge of yours?
Well, I do stupid stuff every day, so I'm constantly trying to forgive myself on a daily basis, but...
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but yes, because on the doping side, I don't want to try to minimize it or say that it was just so commonplace, although it was. It just was what it was. The bigger problem was the way I acted as a man, the way I treated people that were trying to be honest about it, the way I went after people. That's the problem. In my heart of hearts, that's the problem. And so I've just tried. I've traveled the world to confront these people one-on-one and say, hey, you know what? I'm terribly sorry. If my 15-year-old son treated somebody like that in his class, he and I would have an incredibly long, difficult conversation. And so, I've tried to make those amends, and it's a journey, it's a struggle. Sometimes it's odd enough. Sometimes people don't want to hear that you're sorry. Yeah. They kind of like this. They get dug into these positions, and I've had all three camps. I've had the camp that said, thank you for coming to say you're sorry, thank you. I went to Rome to see Simeone, I went to Paris to see Bassons, I went to Florida to see Emma O'Reilly. I've gone all over the world. And some people are cool with that. There are others that were cool with, I'm sorry, but that's been retracted. They didn't want the apology. And then there's others that just said, don't ever apologize to me. And that's the deal too. So, take it day by day. But I think to answer your question, I still got work to do. And, all of my work that I've done with regards to that it's just been stuff that I felt like I would want my son to do if he did something incredibly stupid. It didn't have anything to do with rehabilitation or PR or let's capitalize on this. Although all of these visits ultimately were sort of, I don't want to say exploited by the media, but they were publicized. So it's just stuff that I felt like I had to do on my own little journey.
Let's talk a little bit about the Tour de France. The Tour de France, excuse me. We'll kind of move forward. George Hincapie was part of each of your wins in the Tour de France, but like you, he also admitted to using performance-enhancing drugs. What was your reaction to that, and have you maintained a relationship with him?
You know, he was the only guy to do all 7 tours. I met George Hincapie when we were 16 years old. We were at the Olympic Training Center. I was this brash, cocky kid from Texas, and he was this young, hotshot, total cheeseball from Long Island. And I would say that to him to his face. But we got to be great friends. Not only did we race at Postal and Discovery all those years, but we were on Motorola together. We did Olympics together. We did all these things. So the answer to your question is he's a great friend of mine. We support each other. I do stuff for him. He comes to a big fundraiser we do every year in Colorado for a great young organization called Wapi Api. And George and I are solid. You know, the interesting thing is all of these, you know, everybody in their minds thought, well, when George talks, that's it, right? I mean, if Hincapie says it happened, it happened. And I mean, the reality is that happened, but the real reality is that they all talked because you had a federal agent walk in the door with a badge and a gun. And
showing up at your front house?
Never came to my house, but went to everybody's house, just sort of unannounced. And everybody in this room, I mean, we can all say we went to a journalist or to a friend or to somebody on the street, but when the agent shows up with the badge, it's time to talk. And so that's what happened. And I mean, I guess we can laugh about it now. I wasn't laughing at the time, and so at that point they realized that, you know, the truth and the entire truth is going to come out. And so, but I don't fault them for that. I mean, if he just showed up at my door and wanted to talk about somebody that I knew, you really have no choice but to be totally honest.
The 7 races that you won in France, the Tour de France, do you consider that to be a remarkable achievement?
Well, see, that question is always, I can answer that question, and I would agree with you guys, but the question is always better answered by surrogates, and you just got the answer. But I mean, I think if you were to dig deeper, and if you were going to say to me, Lance, do you feel like you were, because this is very controversial, and there's the answers are on both sides of the divide, but do I consider myself the winner of the Tour? And I mean, the honest answer is I do, and yeah. And I'd take it even farther, and I'd say that there has to be a winner. And the fact that we all raced in that era, and if you go to Wikipedia and you look at the Tour de France, and they'll list the results, and you've got 7 years sort of crossed out, and then you've got 7 green jerseys with Zabel, who's fully admitted his mistakes, still there, and Virenque, 7 polka dot jerseys, has admitted his mistakes, still there. And I don't think it's right and fair for the sport to have that disparity. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, maybe we need to have that example out there that says, okay, this is what happens. But I got to tell you, I did 7 tours with 200 guys each year, so call it 1,400 guys. Nobody stood up and said, I want the jersey, and nobody stood up and said he didn't win them. And you know, ultimately, I need to be judged by, while I appreciate the support in this room, I had to be judged by the people that I suffered with on the road, the people that, you know, that we fought against, and I think they'll all recognize a couple things. It was just a really bad time, but our team was what it was, and I was who I was, and so that's the ultimate sort of reinforcement of that result, or those results.
Let's talk a little bit more about the business aspect. How much of an impact has this had on Livestrong? I mean, your company has done an incredible job. I mean, going from $0 to $500 million and helping so many people with such an important cause that's near and dear to your heart. How do you keep the ball rolling?
Well, it's a complicated answer because you know, when sort of all this started, that was one of the first, and that was one of the first, and certainly the most painful call that came was when the board had decided that I needed to initially step down as the chairman in the organization, and then some weeks later, the second call came and said, we need you to leave completely from the organization. and this is something that, I think a lot of people assume that Livestrong was started after 1 or 2 tours had been won, and we looked around and go, oh my God, we better do something good because we're winning races, we're making money, let's go start a charity. Whereas, I was diagnosed in '96, I started the organization immediately after my diagnosis, so late '96, early '97, and first tour didn't come till '99. This was something that before there was ever even thought of a comeback or thought of getting back on a bike or overcoming the disease, I thought, I gotta do something. And I'm cool if we just raise $100 grand and we give it to some hospital that we think's great or some local nonprofit we think's great, whatever. But let's get people on bikes, let's raise a little dough and feel like we've done something. And it just, obviously, it took off like a rocket ship. You had the first tour, second tour, third tour, and then you had the yellow band. You sold 85 million yellow bands at $1 a piece. And again, the momentum was rolling. But it was so personal to me, and I don't know if it's I guess I have a different view than theirs, but their decision was to go a separate way. So the honest answer is I don't really know how they're doing. I'm not privy to board meetings or to internal stuff, and I only know what I read in the press, which I know is always right.
I'll be the first to agree with it. No, it's not.
But
would they print it if it wasn't true, Lance?
No, that's right. If you believe what you read, it's been a tough time, and that sort of breaks my heart. But I can tell you, this is not a lifelong divorce. I'll just be honest and direct. I'm going to be back running the organization at some point in my life. It means too much to me, and I think it's the right thing. That when timing's right, I haven't. You're probably the first people I've told that, actually. I haven't mentioned that to them, by the way. But I have on that front, their big annual fundraiser is the Livestrong Challenge, which was an event I started even before I was diagnosed. I started a thing called the Ride for the Roses in 1993 in Austin, and so they do the Ride for the Roses in October. I've registered for the ride. I've created a team. As of today, I'm the top individual fundraiser. I'm just like anybody else in this room. I'm the top individual fundraiser, and we have the top team. And I plan on winning both, and taking the mic at the awards ceremony when they announce the top fundraiser, and it'll be the most important speech of my life. So.
You mentioned the drive to get back into that environment because it's so near and dear to your heart and personal. You're here tonight for the same purposes, to raise awareness about health and to offer everyone in this room advice when we get there in just a minute on how we can become healthier and better bike cyclists, etc. Obviously, that drive is still within you to make an impact, to help change what many are calling an epidemic throughout the United States here.
Yeah, the fact is that the system can't support what we, the people, are putting on it. Whether it's, it could be a cancer issue, it could be a heart issue, it could be obesity, it could be diabetes. It could be, we're stressing the system so much, the system can't keep up. And so without foundations and organizations and people like the people that are in this room saying, okay, we're going to try to close the gap here between, what we know we're going to face and what we're trying to keep up with, then we're in trouble. And especially if you look at the younger population, if you look at health and wellness, if you look at where these trends start, and they typically do start in the Southeast, the obesity trend just in this country is astonishing. And so if we don't, so you have a healthcare system that's not strong enough to support us today, then you have this impending tidal wave of obesity and other just chronic problems. 50 years from now looks really, really bad. And I'm not talking about the way somebody looks across the street. I'm talking about that and what it will look like for our system.
What do you think needs to change, or what do we as a society or even as a group need to be doing now to prevent that from happening?
I wish I had that answer. It's some of it's is unavoidable and just not preventable because it crosses so many different sort of zones of our society, whether it's just people's choices, whether what they eat or drink, or the economic situation that they're in, or the way we parent. I mean, look, I feed my kids every night. I mean, and it's easy for men. Like, I like to eat healthy, I like to be healthy, but my kids, they eat like crap. It's amazing.
I've got 2 of those.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, just tonight. All right,
Yeah.
chicken fingers and mac and cheese tonight. I mean, like yellow food all the time.
Yellow food.
And so, you know what I mean? It's like yellow. And so I don't have the answer. I wish I did, but it's going to have to be a collective effort.
We've got the Cardiac Classic tomorrow, 20 kilometers, 50 kilometers.
Wait, that doesn't sound very good. Who named it that? Is there some secret hills around here that are just going to...
There are hills in Arkansas,
I know
and we're going to talk about that in just a sec. But how much time are you spending on the bike right now?
I never ride a bike. No, it's true. I rarely ride. I've ridden twice in 6 months. So take it easy on me tomorrow.
Why?
But I don't know. I just needed a little break. I needed a break. I rode once in Los Angeles in early November. I rode about 10 days ago in Houston for a fundraiser for a local Austin professional triathlete who was diagnosed with cancer. Did a great event for Amy Marsh in the Woodlands, and then I'll ride tomorrow. And so that's sort of but don't worry about me, I'm gonna be fine. I mean, I know how to. I borrowed a bike. Borrowed a bike from Spokes. They lent me a bike.
There we go.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yep. And I run every day. I've been running a ton, doing some crazy runs and swim back in the pool, swimming. So I'm fit enough.
That's good.
I'll fake it.
That's right. A lot of people out here will be participating tomorrow. Others are avid bikers and are seeking, including myself, advice on how we may be able to improve not only our health, but our biking and cycling skills. A couple of questions. How many training rides should the average biker be doing a week?
Look, I mean, people's lives are I mean, we were talking backstage about you trying to do, or when you were doing the Ironmans and half Ironmans.
Trying to do would be right.
Okay,
yeah.
but I corrected it. I said doing. But I mean, your schedule dictates all that. I mean, if you're asking, I mean, a professional rides every day, but there are people that can only squeeze it in on the weekends, or they can, do 2 weekend rides, and then they can, maybe late on a Wednesday night get out for an hour, and it's just a question of what the schedule will allow you to do. But then at that point, you have to factor in all the other elements or the other factors of what it takes to be efficient and fast, and just make this sport easier, right? That's what that's what we always wanted, and then comes into the tricky part, which nobody likes to talk about, and it's the quickest, fastest way to make this sport easier is to lose weight. And people like to say, I'm going to do that, but then they go to, it's hard. And so that was, our jobs back in the day were always to be as fit and strong as we could, but we also had to basically starve ourselves, because it was always about power, the power of the body versus the weight, and the weight is the weight of the person and the weight of the machine. Serious
riders keep logs. They measure all types of things, as you well know. We're talking about lactate threshold, the VO2 max. Is there one measurement that is more useful for an average rider than others that we should be paying close attention to?
It just depends at what level you want to what your budget is. I mean, you can. I mean, seriously. I mean, in the old days, you just kind of rode down the road and said, "Oh, I feel like I'm suffering," and that was your gauge. And then, which is kind of what I do now.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is hard enough. We're good. I'll be there tomorrow, I promise. I'll say it. And then they invented the heart rate monitor, so the heart rate monitor was kind of the measuring stick for effort. And then 10 years after that, the power meters came onto the scene. And so, but a power meter on a bike, an SRM power meter or any of these power meters cost thousands of dollars. And so it gets to be pricey. Yeah. But those are the ways that a professional would monitor his effort. But in terms of logging, the cool thing about logging, in terms of time and distance and hours per week and all these things. Nobody has to write it down anymore. I mean, now you can have your iPhone or maybe your Garmin, your Strava or Map My Ride. You have it all right there. And so, like me, for example, I put every one of my runs, all of my swims, if I ride, I put my rides on Strava. So at the end of the week or the end of the month, you can look and you can see what you've done for the month. You can compare it to somebody else. And I mean, I think that's a whole new sort of realm when it comes to monitoring exercise.
Let's talk about nutrition, minus the yellow food. We all have experienced at some point in time the boink, where everything just shuts down mentally and physically. Is there some symptom out there that we should be aware of that we know it's coming, and what can we do about it to avoid it?
Well, unfortunately, that's by trial and error, because I mean, the way people hydrate and eat during exercise, whether it's training or racing, is really, you just got to kind of find it yourself. And we were talking back stage about doing triathlons, and Kevin done some tries. I was doing tries back in 2012, and the first 75% of them, I was just making mistake after mistake after mistake. I'm thinking, I'm going as hard as I can go for 4 hours. That's how long it take me to do a half.
4 hours?
4 hours. So maybe 3:45. But so I'm thinking I'm going as hard as I can actually go, so I should just be eating as much as I can eat. I'm just pounding food. I mean, I should know this, but I didn't. And pretty soon, you know, the gut just says, okay, that's enough food. And not only is enough food, the gut stops working, and it was a really bad scene many, many times. And so finally then I said, okay, screw it. I'm doing this wrong. I'm not going to eat anything. And the first time I did that was Half Ironman, Florida, in Haines City, otherwise known, excuse my French, as Haines Shitty. If you've ever been to Haines City, no. So I didn't eat anything. I had one honey stinger waffle on the bike, and I had a gel handy for the run if I needed it. Came out fifth out of the water, rode the 56 miles in 2 hours, and got off and ran a 1:15 half on no food.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, oh, I think I figured it out. And won by 10 minutes.
Really?
Yeah, so, you know, so again, it just took me race after race and mistake after mistake after mistake to figure out what was going to work for me. And we're all that way. I mean, there may be people that need a lot of food, but unfortunately, you're just not going to know until you try.
Yeah, my brother's one of them. We have a lot of hills here in the natural state, and so
we got to have the gearing. Forget the food, you got to have the proper gearing on the bike, on the back.
Please.
Hopefully this bike they lent me has like a 26 on the back.
So what advice do you have for us, you know, when we're climbing or descending? I mean, how do you approach the hills?
Well, then the body weight really becomes the most important thing. Okay. And it's too late, guys. It's too late tonight to get ready for tomorrow.
It's too late. Okay.
So,
well,
I got bad news. Good news is I have the answer. Bad news is it's not going to work for tomorrow.
Obviously, the cardiac classics tomorrow. I mean, raising money for the American Heart and Stroke Association is vital, and we appreciate you being here to support that cause. Is this something you see continuing to do, and not only with this forum, but in other forums as well as you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's just to double back on what we talked about in the beginning. I mean, this let's just call it a meltdown, right? Has been so colossal that, especially, I mean, in all fronts. And so anytime I'm asked, especially for something that's related to a nonprofit or related to health and wellness, I say yes, unless I've got to go to, like, you know, Australia or something. I won't go that far. The 500-mile drive was about the end of my rope. But there's been enough sort of hesitation and toxicity around the last 2 years of my life that's sort of been stripped of me as well. And I got to tell you, I mean, I talked about the Livestrong part, but that pains me. And you know, but all I can ever do is say, look, I'm here. You know, I'm here ready to help. I mean, whether it's coming up to Arkansas, or whether it's driving to Houston for Amy Marsh, or whether it's just somebody that stops me on the street. Like, all I need is an audience of one, and I'm not trying to, that's just the deal. And so that's my commitment to cause, a cause or causes, plural. it'll never be the same as it was. We'll never have a $90 million initiative in a yellow wristband ever again. It's done. There will never be some of those highs that we experienced at Livestrong back in the day. But what matters most is that you stay committed to things that matter to you, and that's sort of my promise, and stand ready to serve.
No, we appreciate that very much. We got about 2 minutes left. These are the
I
hard.
want to do some audience. Let's do like 5 audience questions.
Ah, there we go.
No fighting. No, arm wrestling.
He was the first one to put it up, the gentleman right there.
The only guy wearing a tie in the room, aside from Bruce.
Giro d'Italia versus Tour de France. Tell me the difference in your impressions of those two tours.
Well, I only did he asked about the Giro versus the Tour, and the Giro is the Tour of Italy versus the Tour de France. I only did the Giro once, and I hated every minute of it. I did, I really did. I mean, I love Italy, I love the people, I love the food, you love the wine, you love all those things about it, but that race, they can have. It's, and I don't really know, maybe it came too early in the season for me. The Giro is if the Tour is the Super Bowl, the Giro is, like your kid's Pop Warner game. I mean, in terms of organization and safety and structure and just the vibe of the event, and it was, again, it's not a knock on the country or the people, but just I didn't enjoy myself. And 3 weeks is a long time to be somewhere that you're not enjoying yourself. And the tour is, the tour is a month or 6 weeks later, so you know that you got to save something, you got to be safe, you don't want to hit the deck.
Leadville 100. 4 or 5 years ago, Lance, I got a picture on my phone, and it was you. And you were on a mountain bike, and your back tire was flat. And I couldn't understand what that was. I called my...
That's called a flat tire.
She said it was you walking the finish line. And I just wonder what that story is, because you won it by 15 minutes or more on a flat tire.
Well, but yeah. Well, you guys most people know what the Leadville 100 is? It's a mountain bike race in Aspen, and I did it the year before. I got second, and I wanted to go back and win. And but the information during the race wasn't good, so I didn't know that I had 15 minutes. So I thought, oh my God, I think Weens is like 2 minutes behind me. What am I going to do? So I now know how to fix a flat, as the whole world knows. But at the time, I wasn't sure that I could fix it. So I got off, took my CO2, just gave it a little bit of air, hoped that it would hold. It aired up a little, and then it just started to come down again. And by the time I got to the finish, it was flat. But yeah, then I find out he's like, I don't think it was 15. I think it was more than 15 minutes behind. I was like, what was that? I was so stressed about it.
The gentleman in the blue shirt.
Yes, sir. I'm a combat veteran of the Iraq War. When I was there in 2009 in Iraq, I got to watch a lot and stream online, and you're definitely an inspiration to me. But my question to you is, my father is actually a mentor and hero of mine, but you're definitely an inspiration to me. Who is a hero or mentor to you, and who is your inspiration?
Well, first of all, thank you for serving. I don't think any of us want to, this isn't the answer to your question, but I'm going to say it anyways. I don't think any of us want to be in those places and want you guys and gals to be in those places, but it's the people that volunteer to go into those zones. I did 2 USO trips overseas during the Christmas time with my late great friend Robin Williams. So to be in a war zone, and we're there for a week and thinking, all right, let's get out. So to be there for 9 months is, so thank you. I've always held up my mom as an inspiration. She was a tough lady. She's 5'3", 100-pound lady that had me when she was 17, and she was dealt with some interesting news probably when she was maybe late 16, and she never wavered. Said, I'm going to have this kid, and a 10-pound baby boy came out, and she was growing up. We sort of grew up together. In fact, I'm still trying to grow up. But she was everything. She was my mom, she was my coach, she was my cook, she was my driver, she was my cheerleader, she was my friend, she was, and still to this day, we're super close. And so she's really the only person I can think of.
You want to pick one, Lance?
No,
You go right-
you're
you're not
the
going to
bad
do it?
guy.
You're not? The far corner? Yeah, yes, sir.
Several years ago, I was hurt in an accident and was laying in a hospital bed, only had one limb and couldn't turn over in bed. And I had to decide what was the trajectory of my life going to be going forward. And I thought, if Lance can get through what he got through, this race that he had against cancer, I can get over this. And I just want to say thank you. I know I speak for many others and say thank you for the inspiration that you gave me and many others.
Thank you.
With the current level of testing, do you believe that the doping era is on the way out or gone, almost gone?
He asked me with the level of testing that the agencies are doing. What are we? I guess you're saying is how are we doing in that fight? And I think most of the smart people would. I mean, look, they conduct tens and tens of thousands of tests every year. They catch. I think the latest number was like 0.02%. So common sense tells you that's not reality, right? So no, I mean but this is going to be a struggle that we deal with forever. I mean, this is not, and we're at a time and place where science is actually sort of ahead of what's out there. But when there's talk of genetic doping and genetic manipulation, and once that happens, I mean, we kind of just got to sit back, I think, and just go, all right, well, let's just watch. But looking forward to what those athletes are going to have to think about and face, you don't want them to be in that position, but it's almost inevitable. So I hate to be a Debbie Downer, and I'm not involved enough, just because I've been so removed from certainly cycling that I can't give you an honest answer on what it's like on the ground. But I do know that if the percentage of positives is 0.02%, they're not winning that fight yet. So
How about two more?
we're not ending on that one. We can't end on that.
The gentleman in the black, yeah. Yes, sir.
Any of your kids, you got 5 kids, any of your kids ride, take up anything serious about it?
So y'all will appreciate this. I'll start at the top. My son Luke is 15. He's a freshman in high school at Westlake High School in Austin. He's 6'2", 220 pounds, with size 14 feet. So he doesn't ride.
Had to cut him off, huh?
And he never will.
Never will.
He's an offensive left tackle, and he loves football, which is a conflict or a struggle for a parent, I think. But anyways, and then his sisters are twins. They don't ride. And then we have a 5-year-old boy, Max, this kid was riding bikes when he was 2. He and I ride dirt bikes. I got him a little Honda 50cc. So I'll take the KTM 500 up the backside of Aspen Mountain. He'll ride his little Honda 50. He'll go from 8,000 feet to 12,000 feet on this little dirt bike. He loves anything with 2 wheels. So and then he's got a little sister who doesn't ride either. But so I think if there's any chance of another person in this family riding, it's all on Max Armstrong. I mean, that's because nobody else is doing it.
I believe there's a lady with the glasses there.
Yeah, we're going to get a lady in here.
Yes.
A female Texas.
So, yeah, I'm a really woman. Cycling has been a great force for change in my life, but I definitely notice, especially cycling groups, that women really are not as present as they could be.
Yep.
Do you have any ideas about how to popularize cycling?
Yep, I do. Here's a problem, and we've tried to. I have a bike shop in Austin called Mellow Johnny's, and we always one of the main goals that we had when we opened Mellow Johnny's in 2008 was that anytime a woman walks in this bike store, she's going to feel welcome. Because a woman I'm not a woman. I don't know what you think when you walk in a bike store, but you walk in, you see all this machinery, you see all this technology, you see all these complicated things, moving pieces, and it's intimidating. And quite frankly, I think the bike industry for for 40 years wasn't sort of compassionate about that, or had no empathy. What do you mean? What, you know, a problem with the derailleur? Come on, just shift, go. I mean, women don't look at pieces of equipment like that like dudes do. And so we always tried to make it very warm and welcome when a woman walked in. This is, you know, walk them through it and make them feel welcome, and try to drop that intimidation factor down to almost nothing. The other problem too is, and not to say us or guys versus girls or what's the difference, but riding on open roads is sketchy. And there's you know, there's a lot of women, they'll go out for a ride, they'll get buzzed the first time by, you know, some car, and they say, that's it. I don't need that again in my life. And I mean, I think that too when I go out now. I mean, so that's a tricky thing. But I think the most important thing is just on a very grassroots level is getting women into bike stores, getting them on bikes, making them feel comfortable, making them understand how the technology works and what the sport is like. And then obviously there's, from the competitive side, there's a huge movement in global cycling around women in cycling. And I think we've started to see real change. And I think it'll take time because the sport is so traditional and sort of stubborn in Europe. But it wasn't that long ago that tennis was the same way. Women were nowhere in global tennis. And now people want to watch, you know, Serena and Sharapova and all these other women just as much as they want to watch the male greats. And so, look, I got 3 girls, so unfortunately. I got one. One of these 13-year-olds, I'm telling you, I nearly brought her here and left her here. We found, I'm totally getting off subject. We found a picture in her room the other day. It was a picture of her and I when Max was born. She was holding Max and I was sitting on the other side of the couch. She had ripped out my face out of the picture.
Did she say why?
She said some bad things. I took her phone away. So she like hated me.
Took the phone away.
She hated me for a month.
Yeah, well, yeah. I've got 2. So. How about one more question, because I know a lot of you want to be able to get your picture taken with Lance, and he's kind enough to be able to do that for us, as well as some autographs. So, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I see a little fella right there in the very back. You're gonna have to speak loud, champ. I know you can do it, so let her go.
On a bicycle? Yeah.
Everybody, yeah, good question. Good question.
Yeah. I get that question a lot, actually, because people, you know, how fast have you been on a bicycle? Well, a car, I don't know. I mean, yeah. Anyway, I won't get into that. But, I've been 75 miles an hour on a bike.
What?
Yeah, that's. But you gotta keep in mind. I mean, this is not me just going out and finding a steep road and saying I'm gonna go as fast as I can. Oh, I got 75, cool. No, that's 120 guys going down a mountain, you know, a foot from each other, all going 75. And you're thinking to yourself, I'm thinking, all right, I am scared.
Yeah.
Because if one of these guys goes down, we're all going down. And I'm thinking I'm the only scared. You get to the bottom, and sure enough, you're like, dude, was that scary? Every one of them says, I was terrified. So everybody's scared. But one, I mean, you know, the tire, you know how thin the tires are. Front flat at 75.
Oh my gosh.
It's not a good ending. So I don't recommend it.
How about a big round of applause for Lance Armstrong?